Joining us to react is Arkansas Senator Tom Cotton, an Army veteran who serves on the Senate Intel and Armed Services Committees. Welcome to you, Senator. What do you make of Iran's response? And was that the beginning or the end of their direct engagement with Israel? And especially the reporting that Biden advised Netanyahu not to respond.
Well, thank you, Trey. Unfortunately, that's neither the beginning nor the end of Iran's war in Israel, because it's been waging that war for more than 40 years, just like it's been waging proxy war and shadow war against the United States. I first want to commend the bravery and skill of American and Israeli pilots and other troops and troops from friendly nations like Saudi Arabia and Jordan and Great Britain, who helped intercept almost every single one of more than 300 drones and missiles shot at Israel. But of course, President Biden is wrong telling Israel that they shouldn't respond. Imagine America getting 300 drones and missiles shot at our homeland and having a country telling us not to respond. Now, it's up to Prime Minister Netanyahu and his war cabinet and ultimately the elected government and people of Israel about how and when they respond. It's hard to imagine this doesn't steal their resolve to finish the job against Hamas in Gaza or to refuse to tolerate Hezbollah, Iran's proxies to its north in Lebanon, possessing more than 100,000 rockets and missiles and drones on its own, and ultimately to tolerate Iran with a nuclear weapon. Imagine what last night would have looked like if Iran was shooting nuclear-armed missiles into Israel. But the question for us here in America is not so much what Israel will do, it's what President Biden is going to do. And there's a few things we can do right away, and they don't even require military force. He said he wants diplomatic solutions. I've got a few recommendations. One, he keeps giving more than $10 billion in waived sanctions to Iran periodically. He should rescind those immediately. Two, he should work with our European partners to immediately reimpose the snapback sanctions under the flawed nuclear deal with Iran that he's refused to do now for 3.5 years. Three, he should immediately and fully enforce sanctions against Iran's shipment of oil, most of which goes to China. All of these things would immediately put Iran on the back foot diplomatically and financially without President Biden even having to take a step of what he doesn't want to do anywhere, which is use the American military to ever defend American interests.
You know, Senator, while President Biden should listen to you, I'm not sure that he has been. I mean, he has had tougher words for Netanyahu lately, even tougher than what he says to the religious fanatics running Iran. So how do you, under this administration, how do you view our relationship with Israel, given what he says to Netanyahu and what he doesn't say to the mullahs in Iran?
Well, Trey, it doesn't seem to me like the relationship between President Biden and Prime Minister Netanyahu, through no fault of the Prime Minister, is very good. It doesn't seem, frankly, like the relationship between the Democratic Party and Israel is very good right now, when you have pro-Hamas proxies running around like Rashida Tlaib in the House. You have Chris Van Hollen in the Senate demanding that we condition aid to Israel as if it's some third world tyranny. But I can tell you America's relationship with Israel is very strong and will remain very strong because normal Americans in both parties recognize that Israel is a great ally, a strong military that enhances our own strengths and protects our own interests in the Middle East, and also shares deep cultural, religious, historical, and political ties with our nation, the exact kind of ally we should want to have. So whatever the relationship is between the president and the prime minister, the relationship between America and Israel is outstanding and rock solid.
Before I let you go, Russia seems to be siding with Iran. FISA is up for reauthorization. The most progressive member of the House, Ms. Jayapal, who called Israel a racist state, offered an amendment. What do you think of this warrant requirement with FISA? Should it be reauthorized, and should it be reauthorized with reforms?
Well, we certainly need reforms of the FISA process to give the American people confidence it's not going to be abused the way other parts of FISA were abused against President Trump in 2016. I think the bill the House passed is probably the bill that will pass the Senate as well. It has some important reforms in there. It's only a 2-year reauthorization, so we'll have a chance to revisit it in President Trump's second year in office. But the kind of parade of horribles you just mentioned, Trey, I want to stress is happening because Joe Biden has projected weakness all around the world. Russia did not invade Ukraine on Donald Trump's watch. He did on Barack Obama and Joe Biden's watch. Iran would have never thought to shoot 300 missiles and drones at Israel when Donald Trump was president. Russia and Iran and China wouldn't have been mutually supporting each other in wars of unprovoked aggression the way they are now when Donald Trump was president. That's why the world was safer and more stable, and America, therefore, was safer and our interests were more protected when Donald Trump was president. That's one of the reasons why the American people are going to reelect Donald Trump later this year.
Senator Tom Cotton from the great state of Arkansas, who also served our country in uniform. Thank you for joining us on a Sunday night.
Thank you, Trey.